So we're riddled with squirrels, but when you see a little youngster like this, oh bless it, I haven't had a pet squirrel. They are lovely animals. Hello, you coming to say hello, darling? Hello? Come on then. Come on then. Come on then. You gonna say hello? Come on. Come on then. Oh bless you. Come on, let the tree. You're a pain in my bum, but you are cute. We've just finished a weekend. My lucky number's 3, Jack is his 4. Look at that. We've had a lovely pub evening meal after breaking down at the family centre for the weekend's end. And now, before it gets dark, we're just having a local countryside walk. Look at that. Just like those guys are, hand in hand. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard. Hello everybody, welcome back to the vlog. Jack and I are on a road trip. We're on a road trip to collect some endangered species, British endangered species, as part of the wildlife menagerie, because it's a species with a great story to tell. And here's the strange thing. Unlike our other rare and unusual animals that are captive bred, these are actually wild caught endangered species. They cannot be bred in captivity, and we're going to go and hopefully acquire a few from a company that's legally, one of I think only a couple of companies that are legally allowed to harvest these for various reasons, including conservation. I'm not going to tell you what they are just yet, but suffice to say, when I was a kid I used to catch them and I used to keep them, and they are incredibly fascinating, long-lived, very interesting creatures. So we're on a road trip to Gloucestershire, and I'll report back more during our travels and when we get there. Enjoy the rest of the vlog. Next door's honeybees. Seemingly getting some moisture. So we're here down in Gloucestershire. I can see a Toby Carvery and we are starving, so we might have to have a little snack. But we're on site, gonna go meet these guys and see what we can see. I'll show you some equipment. Maybe it'll give you a clue what could be living, or what could these things be used for. Jungle nymph stick insect, look at that. Just shed its skin, so it's hanging down now. Look how small it was. There's its skin. Previous skin, if you like, just there. Hanging down and drying its new skin, exoskeleton. And it'll be a few hours before it's perfectly hard and dry, and it can go about its business again. Isn't nature just amazing?
Over there, mummy ducks and daddy ducks. You squirrel, Lily.
Lady's smock or cuckoo flower. Food plant for the orange tip butterfly caterpillar, the leaves, and obviously the butterflies will drink from the flower. One of my real favourite spring flowers. Just delicate, beautiful, often found in these sort of marshland places. So, Here we are back at base, back at the Falconry Centre. Let me show you these amazing things that we've got here. Let me turn you around. So these little beauties, they're desperately trying to get out, are European glass eels. Glass eels because they're just got to the UK shores, and at this stage they are glass-like and see-through. These are baby European eels, and they're basically now elvers and turning into elvers. And these migrate all the way from their breeding grounds where they're spawned, somewhere, no one really knows where, in the Sargasso Sea. They get a lift here floating in the planktonic current on the Gulf Stream, and that brings them to the shores of the UK, where they then sense, smell, whatever, I'm not entirely sure, I don't know if anyone is, they smell the fresh water coming from our rivers and estuaries, and they migrate en masse. They can swarm and stick to rocky surfaces and literally slither up and around waterfalls. They get into our rivers and canal systems, and then they begin to grow and feed and grow. Many of them on wet, rainy nights will then move on to land during the night through the wet grass and find landlocked areas such as lakes and ponds, gravel pits, where they'll grow even bigger. And then years later, as adults, they'll migrate all the way back to their spawning grounds, which is a feat of nature that no one really knows about or understands perfectly. Look at these. I'll tell you more about them in a second. So this tank's been running now for a year, but it has been unoccupied for a few months. So the filter's sound, but we're not going to chuck loads of food in at once until it's had time to establish. So the fish are floating. Now look at them, those eels. Even through 2 lots of glass, you can kind of see why at this stage in their life cycle, they're called glass eels. So we're going to float them to equalise the temperature and gradually add some of the tank water. I've put them in a couple of other places. Just should I come into mine, they're all dead for some awful reason. I've separated a couple out into other vats. Jackie's tending to Roxy the fox, so we'll come back in a second. I'm going to do a bit more maintenance on the other aquariums. So now the sun's back out and the nights aren't freezing, it's time to put in here with the Viperine snakes our juvenile Aesculapian snakes. So this is at the moment just a nursery outdoor experiment. Bit more height, because these guys here actually were all set up, if you watch the vlog, in my harvest mouse, what was a harvest mouse enclosure. But Bob Bryn Search wildlife photographer brought me some young harvest mice for this year. Look at this lovely melanistic animal here, all black and a lovely markings showing through. Hold on guys. So these beautiful Aesculapian snakes, look at the iridescence. This is the difference between keeping reptiles out in the sun or artificial lighting. Absolutely beautiful. So they were hoisted out of their very recent home here at the Wildlife Centre, and now back outside to grow on and be housed in a standalone setting in the future as they grow. Look at that. Very, very cold. I've gently cooled them down because I've been indoors most of their life. Gently cooled them down. But we're putting them out on a nice sunny day when the night isn't going to be too cold. And this is working great. If you watch the build of this setup, so if you watch me build this from junk, basically, this shelter here, like a hibernaculum, keeps them warmer at night and gives them good deep shade and a cool spot if it does get too hot. But it's all experimental. We're going to monitor this very closely indeed. So viperine snakes and Asclepian snakes, both are European species, both juveniles, on display to the public at last, where they should be. And here, leveling off a base for something else. Finally, they've been awake for a while, but I haven't caught one basking. They jump in. Pool frog or edible frog. Those that know better than me, comment below. Could be either. I'm hoping pool frog. Okay, we put some frozen tubifex worms in there, but they've been fed on like an eel food, if you like prepared food, and I'm told they really like cod roe. Look at them going against the current there. That's amazing. Absolutely phenomenal how they fought that current going upstream. So I went to get half a dozen, and fantastic chap kind of just said, well, he didn't say anything, he just scooped me out a huge net full. I said, there you go, is that enough? I said, like, I kind of I kind of thought I was going to get a few. He said, no, I have a few, have plenty. So look at that. So the trick is now to get some of these guys growing on and having some, well, we will be down half a dozen, I'm sure, we can't have this many, but literally grow them on enough so we can have half a dozen, probably then down to one or two as they grow, proper size eels that they get really tame in aquariums and really interesting aquarium inhabitants that have usually become, certainly when I was a kid and you could just go and catch them, they weren't a rare species like they are now. They become incredibly charismatic animals. So we'll see how they go. We'll report back on these guys soon. Let's just see if we can get anything in focus. You can see what they're called glass eels. You can see their insides, their internal organs, and it's almost see-through flesh. That's going to darken down as they become young eels proper and attain their sort of adult, adult because they do change as they go back to sea, but they're sort of adult form. Get more footage soon. So it all started with me thinking, what can I put in that aquarium here at the Wildlife Centre? Last year we had minnow, stone loach and bullheads, which real good stories to tell. These river fish in England, and certainly Northamptonshire, which are, because what we're doing to the rivers and what the red claw crayfish are doing to the rivers, those illegal immigrants, those invasive immigrant species, those guys are being devastated. Those small river bottom fish that were one of the tiddlers, or some of the tiddlers when I grew up. So I thought, I don't know, I'm going to get a little pike. I used to love keeping baby pike in aquariums. That's going to be a little while before there's any around. It's going to take a lot of work for me to go and catch one. When I used to wade around up to my waist in ponds and ditches and rivers, catching things as a kid, yeah, I don't know, I'd trip over and drown today. So there's a bit more work involved there. And I thought, you know what, an eel. A pet eel that people can see, that'll feed, that'll get really settled in there as like a good aquarium inhabitant, a character fish. But of course, they're highly protected. Fishing for them is really regulated, and I can't afford to do something here that maybe you'd get away with at home. If you caught a small eel while you were fishing for something else, put it in a bucket, took it home for a pet, at the end of the day, no one's going to know, are they? But here we have to do things above board, to the law, and properly, and rightly so. So I put a feeler out. I did a lot of Google searching, and I found one of maybe 2 or a very small number of licensed companies that are allowed to fish. They fish with nets for the elvers during the spring as they run up with the spring tides from the sea up into our rivers, those tiny glass eels. It's worth an email. So I sent an email. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to push British species, get conservation through awareness and education. And this is what we're doing now at Icarus Fulkerina Wildlife Centre. Is there any way legally I can buy, beg, borrow, steal a couple, half a dozen or one eel from you guys, one of these elvers that we can grow on as an aquarium subject, have a nice notice up explaining all about the eels, and again the plight of a really important British animal. Eels used to be common in our waterways. They were food for otters, herons, all manner of fish, pike. They were a real important part of the food chains, and that's really gone. These things are rare now. You could catch them anywhere in Northamptonshire. These are hard to find. Eels, goodness me, I never thought I'd see that. This species is really endangered, but these guys think that with some of the work they're doing and other means, they will bounce back. So what do? They harvest millions, tons of these glass eels through the spring, and then I said, do they go for food? They actually said most of ours don't go sort of directly for food or things like that. Some people then grow them on, and believe it or not, in 18 months they grow to an edible size if their water's heated above 20 degrees Celsius and they're fed a good high protein diet. So 18 months, but actually in the wild you're looking apparently at about 8 years to get them up to just a reasonable size, which isn't that big. So high protein food, lots of it, heated water, 18 months productivity versus about 8 years in the wild. So what do? Well, they actually sell their glass eels for restocking programs. So they'll go to, say, one of the big locks in Northern Ireland, where millions of them, hundreds of thousands, will be released every year. They'll have got those eels there the easy way, maybe on a truck, rather than having to work their way up all these rivers and have a high mortality by catching them en masse as they reach our shores, and then they're released by the thousands in key waterways. And some of these are traditional eel fishing sites. So just for example, because the guy was telling me about this lock in Northern Ireland, they'll go in there, there'll be thousands and thousands stocked, and it takes about 8 years, and then they'll catch some of those eels and harvest them for the eel eating trade. But of course, many thousands more will then make their way to maturity and back to the sea to breed. So by kind of helping these eels get to their freshwater destination where they're designed to just feed and grow into adulthood, this is a really great form of conservation. So it's great to be involved with these guys. But the best thing was, I pinged them an email. The secretary forwarded it to the director. He rang me and said, Dave, just pop in and get a few, mate. Just pop. He said, just call in and get some. Now, I didn't tell him they were over 100 miles away, but call him we did. I'm thinking we'll get like 5 or 6, as I've already told you. And the guy just took 2 netfuls in a tub for me and goes, there you go, is that enough? Goodness me. But isn't that just amazing that there are still these people? I'm surrounded by people that want to take all the time, as you are, but I'm also lucky to be surrounded by genuine, kind, generous people, and to meet people that have never met me, the working guy there that caught the eels, he took me into their rearing ponds. He had plenty of time to tell me, or he gave me plenty of his time, telling me all about what they do and where the eels come from. He didn't rush me at all. He was really interesting to talk to. But I think the fact that the director just said, yeah, just come and get some. How much are you? Don't be stupid. That's nice. That's still nice that these things exist, these people exist. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's vlog. Sorry I've waffled, but I'm really excited. I've really got to keep those things alive and watch them grow. What a great project, and great to see them. It took me right back to being 4 or 5 years old, holidaying in Wales, catching them in a bandy net as they ran up a little estuary tributary. This is what I love about this British Wildlife Centre. I get to re-enthuse about the stuff I did as a kid, and I get to show these other kids all this wonderful stuff in real life. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.